At my parents' anniversary celebration, they put my seat in the garage. My mother remarked, "It's just for extended family." As I glanced around, I noticed everyone else had a seat, even my cousin, who had previously taken advantage of them. Frustrated, I picked up my gift, turned, and said, "Extend this." My father chased after me in front of everyone. The engine purred, but my ears were ringing, my hands gripped the wheel tightly, knuckles pale as I shook uncontrollably, fearing I might lose control. My chest felt as though it was being crushed, the air thick with the scent of old oil. And was that shame? It all unfolded tonight at their party, my parents' 35th anniversary, and I simply walked out after what my mother said and where they put me. At 32, it took being placed in the garage to finally realize all those years of effort, giving, and wanting to be acknowledged had culminated in a folding chair next to the lawnmower. Growing up, our home always felt like a stage with Emma as the star and me as the stagehand, the quiet one ensuring everything went smoothly in the background. Emma, younger and full of charm, was like sunshine and glitter, effortlessly popular. Everything our parents seemed to cherish. I, on the other hand, was more like clouds and gentle rain. They celebrated her achievements, big or small, while mine were met with a nod or a quick comparison to Emma's successes. "Oh, Michael got an A in calculus. That's nice. Emma's lead in the school play was just magical, wasn't it?" My mother had a specific sigh, a slow exhale that spoke volumes of disappointment, often directed at me. My father's typical gesture was a dismissive pat on the shoulder, a silent way of saying, "All right, move along." I craved their approval like a lifeline, believing that if I was just good enough or helpful enough, they would finally see me. I became the peacemaker. Whenever Emma and my mother clashed, stepping in to ease the tension, "Michael, you're older," they would say, their voices weary. "You should know better than to upset your mother or sister." So I learned to anticipate, to avoid conflict, and to take responsibility for keeping the peace, even when it wasn't my issue. When I was 17, I finally got my own beat-up Camaro that I had saved for. Emma, at 15, took it out for a joyride and crashed it into a lamppost. Terrified and crying, she returned home, while my parents were furious. Before they could speak, I stepped up and claimed I lost control, costing me all my summer job savings, and then some to repair it. I worked extra hours at the diner, wiping grease from my hands late at night, thinking, "They'll appreciate this. This is sacrifice. This is family." My parents just shook their heads, saying, "Really irresponsible, Michael. We expected better." Emma barely offered a thank you, and the silence felt heavier than the debt. Later in my 20s, while I was starting to establish my career, my dad lost his job unexpectedly, and they faced foreclosure. I drained my savings, postponed my own plans, and helped them with the mortgage payments for nearly a year until Dad found new work. It was tough for me, living on ramen noodles and working weekends. When the crisis passed, my mother said, "We appreciate your help, Michael. That was good of you." Good of me, not essential or life-saving, just good, like bringing over a casserole. Last year, they needed $15,000 for significant home repairs, a leaky roof, and structural issues. They called me first, not Emma, who was doing well financially by then. "Michael, we don't know what we'll do." My mother sighed into the phone, that familiar sound twisting something inside me. I barely hesitated. I had money saved for a down payment on my own small condo, but that dream had to wait. I transferred the funds, watching the number on the screen shrink, thinking about all the extra shifts and careful budgeting, feeling a familiar emptiness. They weren't overly grateful, just, "Oh, that's good, Michael. The roof really needs it. We'll pay you back when we can." All these moments blurred together, a lifetime of being the dependable provider, the quiet supporter, the emotional sponge, the one who always showed up but remained firmly in the background. I was the sturdy oak tree in their garden, taken for granted, while Emma was the vibrant rose everyone admired. So, when the invitation for their 35th anniversary party arrived, a formal, almost impersonal card that felt more like a directive than a warm invitation, my first instinct was exhaustion. A lavish party they could barely afford, held in the house I had helped maintain. It felt like another instance of them prioritizing appearances over reality, or perhaps expecting me to cover the gap again. I kept my distance from their constant demands, building a quieter life, but as the RSVP deadline approached, the old patterns resurfaced. Maybe this milestone would be different, maybe surrounded by friends and family. They would show a flicker of genuine appreciation or at least acknowledge my existence beyond my utility. I RSVP'd yes, and even helped them find a fantastic caterer. Through a connection at my company, securing a great deal. Just another thing I did quietly to assist. I didn't expect to be seated at the head table or anything extravagant. Just a place at the table to feel like family. The evening was warm and humid, the kind of sticky southern night where the air hangs heavy with the scent of jasmine. Pulling up to my parents' house, transformed for the occasion, felt surreal. Fairy lights twinkled in the old oak trees I used to climb. The lawn was manicured, and the porch draped with elegant white fabric. Soft music drifted from open windows, and valet parking attendants, whom I knew they couldn't truly afford, waved cars into the driveway. It looked perfect. A picture-perfect Southern celebration. Inside, the house buzzed with people I hadn't seen in years. Friends of my parents, distant cousins, neighbors. My mother appeared radiant in a blue dress. My father beamed beside her, playing charming hosts. Emma was, of course, circulating effortlessly, looking stunning, laughing, and drawing a crowd. I felt a familiar tightening in my chest, the old performance anxiety kicking in. Smile, Michael. Be pleasant. Don't rock the boat. I offered my congratulations and handed them the gift I had carefully chosen, a framed vintage map of their hometown they had always talked about. My mother accepted it with a polite smile, immediately handing it off to an attendant. "Oh, lovely, Michael. Thank you for coming." My father gave me the quick, dismissive pat on the shoulder, same as ever. I took a breath, lowered my expectations, and looked for my seat. The main room was beautifully arranged with crisp linen, china, and floral centerpieces. Place cards marked each seat, but I didn't see my name at the head table or at any of the nearby tables where closer family and important friends were seated. I wandered through the room, scanning the cards, my aunt and uncle, Emma's friends, even Mr. Henderson from down the street, who had just moved here last year. Still, no Michael. A knot of anxiety formed in my stomach as I saw my mother speaking to the caterer, the one I had recommended who got them a discount. I approached, trying to keep my voice light. "Mom, I can't seem to find my seat." She turned, a flicker of impatience in her eyes, quickly masked. "Oh, Michael, yes, your seat is out there." She gestured vaguely towards the back of the house, towards the side door that led to the garage. Confusion turned to disbelief. Out there? In the garage? She let out that sigh, that familiar, deflating sound. "Yes, it's just for extended family." Her tone suggested it was self-explanatory, perhaps slightly unfortunate, but utterly necessary. My mind reeled. Extended family? I looked around the main room again. My cousin Mark was seated at a prime table near the back wall, laughing loudly. The same Mark who had stolen Dad's golf clubs and Mom's jewelry 5 years ago and hadn't spoken to them since. Yet, here he was, charming his way through everything, seated inside at a table. I scanned the faces. People I knew were practically strangers to my parents, seated at proper tables in the main area. And I, their son, the one who helped save their home, was relegated to the garage. The garage. I moved toward the side door, the polite buzz of the party fading behind me, replaced by the echo of my own heartbeat. Pushing the door open, I stepped onto the concrete floor, smelling gasoline, old tires, and dust. Fluorescent lights cast a harsh glow. A single folding table stood in the center, covered with a plastic tablecloth with folding chairs set up around it. This wasn't an overflow space set up nicely. This was the garage. There were a few people already seated. My great-aunt Carol, who was lovely but hadn't left her house in years and barely knew anyone, and Mr. Henderson's awkward nephew, who was apparently helping with parking. And yes, there was Cousin Mark, leaning back in his chair, scrolling through his phone, looking utterly bored but definitely inside the house's orbit compared to this exiled zone. I stood there for a moment, the absurdity washing over me, quickly followed by a wave of scalding humiliation. The music, the laughter, the clinking glasses from inside felt like a deliberate mockery. This wasn't an oversight. It wasn't a mistake. This was a clear statement of where I ranked. beneath the man who stole from them, among people who barely belonged or clearly didn't fit in. I was less important, less valued, less family than a thief and practical strangers. My chest tightened, not like barbed wire, but like a concrete block settling heavily on my lungs. My vision blurred at the edges. This was it. The culmination of years of being overlooked, of having my contributions minimized, of being blamed for things I didn't do, of constantly being measured against Emma and found lacking. It all led to this folding chair beside the lawnmower at my parents' 35th wedding anniversary party. My rock bottom. In that moment, something shifted. The old desire for approval, the longing to be seen, didn't just fade. It snapped like a dry twig. It was replaced by a cold, hard clarity and a surge of righteous anger. I didn't belong here, not just in this garage, but in this toxic dynamic, in this performance of a family that didn't actually see me. I looked down at the gift still in my hand. The framed map, a symbol of their history, their foundation. I had contributed to keeping that foundation from crumbling, not just with money, but with years of emotional energy. And this is how they honored that, by putting me in the garage. My fingers trembled, not with fear, but with suppressed fury. I didn't set the gift down. I turned around and walked back through the side door into the main party room. The music seemed to falter. Conversations quieted, heads turned. It felt like walking onto that stage I had always worked behind, but this time, I wasn't placing props. I was the act. My father saw me first. His smile faltered. "Michael, where are you going? What are you doing?" His voice was loud, cutting. Through the sudden hush as he approached, concern mixing with annoyance, the annoyance of his perfect party being interrupted. I stopped near the center of the room, not far from where my mother stood, wide-eyed. I held up the framed map, not for them to take, but for everyone to see. My voice was quiet, but clear, amplified by the silence. "You seated me in the garage," I stated, looking directly at my mother. "Said it was for extended family." My gaze swept across the room, meeting the eyes of people who were not extended family, people who barely knew my parents, seated at tables. I looked at Mark, still visible from where I stood. "Even Mark has a seat inside," I added, the absurdity hitting me again. Then I looked back at my parents, at the beautiful, expensive facade they had created. I held up the map, not throwing it, not slamming it down, just holding it, a tangible representation of their history, their home, everything I had helped preserve. "So," I said, my voice steady and cold, "extend this." I placed the framed map carefully on an empty side table, turned, and walked out of the party, out of the house, out of the life I had been trying to fit into for 32 years. My father called after me, louder this time, "Michael, get back here." But I didn't stop or look back. I just kept walking through the fairy lights, past the confused valet attendants, and got into my car. The drive home was a blur of conflicting emotions. Anger, hot and sharp, warring with deep, aching sorrow. Yes, there was shame, but it was quickly overshadowed by a strange, exhilarating sense of freedom. I had done it. I had finally publicly refused to play my assigned role. The silence in my car was deafening after the party noise, but it was my silence. Control felt foreign and exhilarating. The text started before I was even halfway home. First from my mother. "Michael, what was that? How could you? You ruined everything." Quickly followed by my father. "Your mother is distraught. Come back and apologize immediately." Then Emma. "Seriously, Michael? Making a scene at their anniversary? Grow up." The flying monkeys weren't far behind. Calls and texts from aunts, uncles, and even some of my parents' friends, all with the same theme: "How dare you? You hurt them. You need to fix this." They were deploying their signature tactic, making me the villain, gaslighting me into believing my justified reaction was the problem, not their actions. I didn't respond to any of them that night. I pulled into my small apartment parking lot, the quiet solitude, a stark contrast to the performative chaos I had just escaped. My hands were still shaking as I unlocked my door. The apartment felt like a sanctuary. It was mine. No one could put me in the garage here. The next morning, the wave of raw emotion subsided, leaving behind a cold, hard resolve. I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were, ever. This wasn't just about a chair, it was about a lifetime of emotional neglect and financial exploitation masquerading as family obligation. I needed help navigating this. I wasn't equipped to handle their manipulation alone. I called my friend Sarah. Sarah was the sister I never had. Smart, direct, and fiercely loyal. I poured out the story, the humiliation, the anger, the years leading up to it. She listened without interruption. When I finished, she didn't hesitate. "Michael, that is absolutely messed up. You did the right thing walking out. More than the right thing. You stood up for yourself after decades. You need to protect yourself now. Legally, this pattern, it's financial abuse layered with emotional garbage. My cousin is a family lawyer, brilliant with tricky situations like this. I'll connect you." Contacting the lawyer, Mr. Davies, felt daunting, like acknowledging that the break was permanent and serious. But Mr. Davies was calm and professional. He listened to the history, the financial contributions, the will they won't they promises, about inheritance, the party incident, and the immediate backlash. "While the seating arrangement isn't illegal, Michael," he explained, "the pattern of significant unacknowledged financial contributions, especially tied to things like mortgage payments and home repairs, combined with potential issues regarding inheritance or past agreements, gives us grounds to seek clarity and potentially recoup some of your investment, or at least protect your future interests." He added, "Their reaction and attempts to slander you also need to be addressed. We need documentation. Gather everything. Bank records, emails, texts, letters, anything related to money exchanged, promises made, or their treatment of you." The next few weeks were a painful deep dive into the past, going through old files, bank statements, searching through years of emails and text messages. Each document, each message was like a little paper cut, reopening old wounds. I found the bank transfers for the mortgage, for the $15,000 repair money, and the casual confirmations from my parents. It all confirmed the imbalance. I was their safety net, their bank, their emotional punching bag, but never truly their son, in the way Emma was their daughter. The smear campaign from my parents and Emma was in full swing. I received clipped emails from distant relatives saying things like, "Your mother is beside herself. Families forgive, Michael. Pride is a terrible thing." I saw passive-aggressive Facebook posts from my mother about the pain of ingratitude and children who forget where they came from. Emma posted photos from the party, pointedly tagging everyone except me, captioning one album, "My beautiful, supportive family." It felt like they were trying to rewrite history and gaslight not just me, but the entire family network. Their social mask was firmly in place for the public, painting me as the villain who had abandoned them. During this painful documentation process, I stumbled upon something that made my blood run cold: the financial deceit. An email chain between my mother and Emma from last year, dated just weeks after I had sent the $15,000 for home repairs. They were discussing Emma needing a significant amount of money quickly for an investment opportunity. My mother wrote, "Don't worry, Michael's money came through. We'll use that for you. We can always get the roof fixed later. It's not that bad. Just leaks when it rains hard." Another email confirmed part of the money went towards a lavish anniversary trip they took earlier that year, which they passed off as a surprise gift from a friend. It wasn't just passive acceptance of my money, it was active, calculated. Diversion of funds I had given for a specific purpose towards Emma's venture and their own luxury. They had lied directly to my face and used my sacrifice to benefit themselves and my sister, all while letting me believe it went to the house. It wasn't just neglect. It was planned financial manipulation. Reading those emails felt like a physical blow. It confirmed the cold, transactional nature of their relationship with me. It wasn't just about the party, I whispered to myself, the emails blurring through tears of pure rage. It was about all of it. Years of gaslighting and manipulation, summarized in this exchange. Armed with this damning evidence, bank records, emails, texts, Mr. Davies felt confident. We decided to request a formal mediation, a structured meeting with a neutral third party to lay out our case. It was time to stop reacting and start acting strategically, using truth and evidence. The meeting was set for a stuffy conference room downtown. My parents arrived with Emma, their expressions a mix of indignant self-pity and barely concealed anger. Their lawyer looked bored. Mr. Davies and I sat across the table. I was terrified, my heart hammering, but beneath it was a core of steel forged in the garage. Mr. Davies began laying out the pattern of my relationship with them, my contributions, then calmly presented the documented evidence of the financial transfers. My parents shifted uncomfortably. Their lawyer perked up slightly. Then came the emails. As Mr. Davies read excerpts, the parts about using Michael's money for Emma and the trip instead of repairs, my mother's face went pale, then flushed crimson. My father started to interrupt, blustering, "That's out of context. Lies." But Mr. Davies cut him off, his voice quiet but firm as he held up the printouts. "These are direct communications, Mr. Smith." Emma sat frozen, her usual charm replaced by pure panic. Their mask was cracking, crumbling, under the weight of undeniable truth. The unexpected witness appeared quietly. Mr. Davies had mentioned inviting someone who might offer a unique perspective, but I hadn't known who it would be. Standing there, looking slightly uncomfortable but resolute, was Cousin Mark, the one who had stolen from them, the one who had been seated in the garage with me. He didn't steal the spotlight or make a scene. He simply stated, his voice a bit rough, looking at my parents, "I know I messed up back then. I paid my dues. But putting Michael in the garage after everything he's done, even I got a real seat inside. I saw it, and I heard some of what was said that night. The way you talked about him, it ain't right. He deserves better." His simple, unexpected validation, coming from the person they had ironically seated above me at the party, was more powerful than any argument the lawyers could make. It wasn't about legal standing, it was about moral clarity from an objective, if flawed, outsider who had witnessed their hypocrisy firsthand. The air in the room thickened with unspoken accusations. My parents and Emma seemed to shrink, their carefully constructed facade collapsing. Under Mark's unexpected honest testimony and the pile of evidence, the mediation ended with a tense, uneasy agreement. No grand reconciliation, no tearful apologies. That wasn't the reality of this family. Legally, given the evidence, my parents agreed to formally renounce any claim on the money I had contributed, acknowledging it as a loan repaid to protect my future interests. They also agreed through their lawyer to cease any defamatory communication. There wasn't a huge financial recovery for me. The money was gone, spent, but the legal documentation meant they couldn't pull the same stunts regarding future assets or inheritance without a clear record of their past actions. It was less about the money and more about the validation. It was about having the truth acknowledged officially. The cost of the lawyer was significant, a realistic consequence, but worth the peace of mind and the legal shield it provided. The social fallout was immediate and widespread. The family divided. Some believed my parents' ongoing story of the ungrateful son, while others, having heard about the evidence or Mark's unexpected appearance, quietly reached out to me, offering support and sharing their own observations about the family dynamic over the years. "We always wondered," one distant aunt confessed over the phone. Friends rallied around me, solidifying my chosen family. They weren't shocked. They had seen the patterns from the outside for years. My relationship with my parents and Emma became a vast, empty space, limited to formal contact via occasional texts about logistics, devoid of warmth or genuine connection. The performative family unit fractured publicly. There were no more expectations from them, and no more yearning from me. The silence where a family used to be was painful at times, but it was also quiet. It was mine. The months that followed weren't a sudden burst of happiness, but a slow, steady process of healing. It was like recovering from major surgery. Painful, requiring careful attention, but ultimately leading to health. I started therapy, processing years of trying to earn love, of feeling not enough. I learned to recognize the patterns of manipulation and gaslighting so they wouldn't affect me the same way again. I learned that setting boundaries wasn't mean or selfish. It was an act of self-preservation, an act of self-love. It felt like finally stepping out of a shadow I had lived in my whole life and discovering what my own sunlight felt like. I focused on building my chosen family, dinners with Sarah and her partner, who celebrated my successes without comparing them and offered comfort without judgment, connecting more deeply with the few relatives who had shown genuine concern. investing time and energy into relationships based on mutual respect, honesty, and genuine care. It felt like planting a new garden, one where every plant was chosen with intention and nurtured with real warmth. I still have moments of sadness, seeing other families who seem effortlessly close, or when an old memory resurfaces. The scar is there, but it doesn't define me anymore. I learned that true family isn't just blood. It's built on respect, trust, and showing up for each other in meaningful ways, not just for show or financial gain. It's okay to grieve the family you wished you had while simultaneously building the family you deserve. The courage it took to stand up and say, "Extend this," wasn't just about that moment at the party. It was the courage to face a painful truth about the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. It was the courage to choose your own well-being and self-respect over a toxic status quo. Looking back, sitting in the quiet of my own living room now, with only the gentle hum of my refrigerator and the distant city noise, no more forced laughter from a party or the angry silence of confrontation, I realized being seated in that garage wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The moment the flimsy walls of illusion came crashing down, forcing me to step outside and find my own path. It was painful. It was public. But it was the catalyst that led me to a life that is finally truly my own. Maybe you've been there too, felt invisible in your own family, felt like your worth was conditional. Setting boundaries with family is one of the hardest things you'll ever do, but sometimes it's the only way to finally find yourself.